but I became like micro famous in that space in 18 months. That's what podcasting did for me. So yeah, everything just kind of went off from there.
So how many interviews would you say that was in the 18-month span?
Oh my God. Real Estate Uncensored at one point was running 3 days a week with guests. Then I was hosting 2 other shows and then doing some Facebook Lives. I swear I was on live video somewhere between 5 and 8 hours a week.
Dude, as an introvert, how does your mind just not explode? Like,
well, what's interesting is I've worked from home since 2015, and so yes, it drains my energy to like do back-to-back calls and meetings all day, but not like going to a networking event, not like going to an industry conference, right? I remember distinctly before I started all this stuff, I did go to some industry events and stuff like that, and I was hanging out with one of our strategic partners, and I heard through the grapevine that he asked my CEO afterwards, he's like, does Matt actually like me? Did he enjoy himself at all at that event? I'm like, the CEO's telling me about this afterwards and laughing about it because he knows me. We're both introverts. And I'm like, I had a great time, actually. I was just tired because I don't hold up well for 8 straight hours at an event. And so to me, doing this stuff virtually does change things. I can be in my comfort zone and I'm by myself while I'm networking and having conversations. So the energy drain is just different. There's not so much external stimuli. I'm not worried about 1,000 other people milling around next to me and all this stuff. So it is different. I was able to do that and keep my energy up.
well, let's go back and talk about that from like 2015 when you started as an introvert, because I think this is something people get really overwhelmed, right? I know there are more podcasts coming out now. I know there's more live video, but people are still really overwhelmed when they're getting started. They make this huge to-do list. They have all these things flying around in their head. And I think introverts even more so are like, this is just going to kill me. Like, I don't know if I can do it. How do I put myself out there? But then you see people, Russell Brunson, introvert, super awkward in person. If you ever meet him, really nice guy, but definitely like way on the introvert scale. How did you, I know you were doing like the Google Hangouts before, but how did you go from that to like, okay, I'm actually doing this and I'm going to be on video? Like what was the mindset that you got into and how did you manage that?
Man, that's a good question. It all happens so fast. I think part of it is that I was just naturally driven from a young age to teach and to train other people. Like when I grew up, my dad pastored a couple of different churches over the course of my childhood. So I grew up, like for me, public speaking was an expectation, not something to be dreaded. So I did have that little advantage there. And the other thing about podcasting, which I think is different from a lot of other ways that you could market yourself or use video and use audio, I think what's unique about podcasting is they're authentic, real conversations. Like you and I are talking about ideas and stories, like, and it's interesting and it's dynamic, and it's not me sitting in front of like a video screen and a teleprompter trying to get the wording perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a different thing. So I love the battleground of ideas. That's part of why I love marketing to begin with. And so podcasting is like a space where you get to talk to really smart, cool, interesting people about really awesome stuff. And so it doesn't drain my energy in a way that makes it feel overwhelming. So I could do 2 or 3 podcasts a day and be fine, versus if you sent me into a cocktail hour, I'd want to duck out after about 10 minutes because the experience of it in the moment is different. And I think a lot of introverts are like that. And I don't think, for those that don't know, podcasting, even if you're on video, it's different. The energy drain is nowhere near the same as a live event. It's just easier. You can do more of it. You can have more deep conversations. It's really interesting. It's a great way to connect and network with people. And you get to like potentially pants are optional. I mean, granted, I'm wearing, just to clarify, pants are not optional for me, but for some folks, they are optional.
That is very true. I mean, I think something that you touched on as well, like for the introverts listening, like you get to be in your comfort zone, right? Whatever you were doing 5 minutes before we jumped on the camera, you could have been meditating, you could have been having a cocktail, you could have been drinking some orange juice and doing yoga. And then you pop in, we do the interview, and you can pop right back out. And like, you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go to somewhere new. You don't have to shake hands with 50 people. We got to know each other right before we jumped on through a few minutes of conversation. It's not overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for anyone that's like, if you're introverted and you feel like I always felt like I was bad at small talk. And there's an element of truth to that, and there's an element that it's just a limiting belief, because it's absolutely something that can be learned, obviously. But I do feel like, this environment where you can kind of pop on and you're on Zoom and you're just kind of having a good time. It doesn't feel like small talk at a networking event where you're trying to figure out the social logistics of, do I need to get this person involved? And like, what group of people do I walk up to? And do I know this person? Do they just look like somebody I know from a distance? Like, is my eyes are bad? There's like all this, so you take all that stuff out of it and you can really just focus in and zero in on the person across from you and just focus on having a great conversation with them and making them feel heard and valued and stuff. I think that comes really easily to introverts. So for those that don't know, that's part of what makes it so enjoyable.
So I want to, as an introvert, I think a lot of the things that I hear, because I've had some people reach out to me actually about the podcast and say, you listen really well and you ask really good questions. Mm-hmm. I feel like that comes natural, but talk to me as an introvert, because you're obviously really processing this stuff. Mm-hmm. I would think introverts would be scared to do a podcast because they're like, what am I going to talk about? What if nobody says anything? Because I would say we're not having a lot of small talk. We're not bantering.
No, and I think that's part of what introverts have a harder time with is the small talk and banter. Now I like it. I've gotten better at it over the years and stuff. But the cool thing about podcasting is you do tend to kind of dive into the deep end fairly quickly. Like, we're talking about deep ideas and our backgrounds. And like, if you and I met at a cocktail party, it would take us some time to get past the initial, the weather outside, and like, who do you know here, and like just all the shallow questions that we tend to talk to each other about when we're in person. On a podcast, the expectation is like, hey, we're recording something and it better be damn good. So you kind of jump into the deep end faster, which is, I think, for introverts, it suits us really well, because we're like, hey, skip the shallow stuff and let's get into the fun stuff faster anyway. So I think that actually works really well, and it kind of fits our strengths. As far as being afraid, I think where introverts may be afraid of starting a podcast is if they get overly caught up on the idea of them doing these perfectly scripted 10 to 15 minute solo podcasts where it's just them talking. And there's mm-hmm. no back and forth, there's no interaction, there's no engagement. And that's fine. Like, I've done a mix of, because I do solo episodes, a lot of them on my podcast. And I used to script them out. Then they went to bullet points, and now I can rant. It's just a process. Like, you just get used to it. So I think if introverts understand that, just realize that there is a natural growth process. And if you feel more comfortable scripting some stuff out in the beginning, do it. Do what you need to do. But you will probably get to the point where you can just start talking stream of consciousness and you'll like how it sounds. It's just a process.
That is like such good advice. That's what I always recommend people take a Post-it note, flip it upside down, 3 bullets. You can stick it on the back of your phone so you can see it if you're doing a Facebook Live. Yep. But it is a process, and you eventually get better, just like anything you're going to do. Are you looking to scale your business but trying to figure out how to get your message across? Well, go to storyselling.how to grab my free course that will show you how to discover everything that you need to build your business through stories. These stories work whether it's in social media, email, or public speaking. There are 5 core stories that you'll learn. You'll be able to use all of them by the time you're done with this course. Again, that is storyselling.how. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to tune in next time.